Hi everyone, and welcome in this 8th episode of the Git series, the series where we try to implement Git from scratch. And today we're going to continue to work on the mock object repository. If you remember correctly, last time we started to implement the object repository, and we couldn't finish. So we implemented the object repository. So we implemented the object repository as a trait. So it's a save. We have a save method that takes the hash and the byte stream because we want to potentially handle big files. So it needs to be a stream and not a chunk of byte or an array of byte. You can see here that I also define the error because often when we connect with infrastructure, there's going to be some errors. So it's handy to be able to identify where the errors come in the application, hence the explicit error here. And we also implemented the mock here. And this mock, the goal of this mock was to register when we call save methods. And if I open the spec, the hash object use case spec, what we wanted to check is that the object repository should be called when we specify the command hash file with save true. So you can see here that we initialize the registry, and then we provide the layer, the object repository layer here to our to build our hash object use case, and then we get the registry, and we're able to assert that it's saved, the number of time and the parameters that were used to save. So that's what we started last time. And so if I open the results of that, we can see that it was failing last time, and we didn't have to finish. So today we're going to finish that. I made a couple of mistakes. The first one is that by the nature of ZStream, like it's lazy construct, like potentially it can hold something that is not completely in memory. So we can't compare to ZStream. That's not possible. So we're going to need to transform that into a different data structure that we can compare. And there is another issue as well, I think, that we didn't take into account here. So I suggest that we start by fixing this comparison of ZStream here, and we are going to start by the mock. So if I open the mock, here we define it an enum with a case save, and we put the byte stream as a stream here. But we said that we can't really compare that. However, we still want to keep in the signature of the repository, we still want to keep the byte stream because we still want to have this ability to handle like a stream of byte and not fit all the data of one byte of one not fit all the data of one file in memory. So what I'm going to do here, instead of having a Z stream of byte, is I'm going to have an array or a chunk. Actually, I'm going to start by implementing that. So I'm going to create a for here. What I'm going to do here, so I have the byte stream, which is a Z stream here, and I'm going to collect all the data. So I'm going to collect the bytes and say byte stream dot collect run collect, is it? Oops, sorry. It's run collect. Yeah, if we look at run collect, so if we look at run collect here, what's going to do is going to return a ZIO of chunk. So that's what's going to be our type for in the enum. So here I have the bytes, and I can put that up. So here that's that doesn't return anything, so I can just put another score, and so instead of the byte stream here, I'm going to put bytes. That corresponds to the chunk of byte, and we are going to yield the units, because you can see that we are returning unit. Obviously here is saying that byte is not correct. I wonder if we can ask IntelliJ to adjust type what it does. What does it going to do? Okay. So here we say that we want to have chunk instead. Chunk of byte, and that way all the bytes are going to be in memory for the test. So we'll be able to check that, to compare that properly. So if I'm going back here now, so you can see here that I was transforming into ZStream, which is not correct. So I'm going to just actually, it still needs to be a chunk, because getByte is going to return an array. So here I need to return a chunk. So and chunk, and I think there is a from method in chunk that we can use here. Oops, sorry. And that should work. Okay, let's open the terminal and run the test again. All right. So here you remember earlier I talked about the error. So the problem that we have here in our mock is that we are returning a throwable instead of object repository error. So let's go back to our mock. And I need to import the chunk. Import SIO dot chunk maybe. Okay, that's the first thing. And the way we can do that, so here we still have the error about returning a throwable instead of a specific error. So because if we look here, oops, sorry, if we look at the type I suspect, yeah, you can see here that the run collect returns the throwable. So that's why you can't fit a throwable inside of object repository error. It's not a, there is no relationship between the two. So we are going to actually update that. And instead of a tray here, we're going to create a case class. And this case class is going to be wrapping the throwable. And then we can put, so you can see here throwable takes cause as well. So we can put the throwable here. So what's going to happen if there is an object repository error? We're going to see in the stack trace first the object repository error, and then we are going to see caused by the throwable, the exception that we are mentioning here, this exception here. And eventually we can add a message to this as another argument here. We can add a message that would be displayed as well. And so now we can go back to our mock. And what we can do here is, so if we check the type of that, I expect that it's not going to, okay, it's UIO, so I suspect there is no error here. So what we can do here is just map error, and we can put as a type, as a value object. Actually, probably makes more sense to add the message straight away, because otherwise we're gonna have to update every one of them. So here I'm gonna give it's gonna take the error, and I'm gonna first give a message. So the message is gonna be like error while collecting bytes in the mock. And obviously here we need to actually update that as well. So I'm going to take message, which is a string, and we can also put the message here. Okay, perfect. So I'm pretty happy about that. Let's run the test again. All right, obviously I forgot to put the error here. I need to put the error here. So we're still expecting our test to fail. But now, hopefully, okay, so you can see it's better already. We have values to compare. And if we look, the only difference is that the order is wrong here. So let's fix the order. So if I open the spec again, what's going to happen is, so here the type that we have is a vector. And I think, so we used equal to here, but actually looking at the documentation, I saw that there was same elements, or, okay, so I just checked, this actually has same elements. So now we expect our test to fail for the good reasons. And still not, so an implementation is missing in hash object use case spec 57. So 57, what do we have at 57? Okay, we have, okay, so this is called, so I'm just gonna put 0 units here, because in this test, so in this test we are not, yeah, no, 0 units, thank you. In this test we are just calling hash file, but we say false. So Yeah, I'm not sure what it's called exactly. And hash text. Yeah, I'm gonna put the unit as well, even though it's probably not necessary. Okay, we have all our tests passing. I'm a bit surprised because I was thinking that we would have the test failing for the good reasons. So if I open the use case again, are we calling the repository here? Oh, we are actually calling the repository. So let's comment that out. We want to check that the tests are actually doing something. Okay, we have here nil didn't have the same element as that. Good. Okay, perfect. Specified, and I'm gonna put for file content input right. Oops. Okay. Cool. So we have our tests that is now passing. We have a test that is now passing for the good reasons. So we are able to check that we are actually calling the mock. We're actually calling, sorry, the object repository in our hash object use case. Comment that back. Okay, our test is passing perfectly. Let's commit that. So cool. So what's next now? So we can tick. Oops. We can tick this box. Okay, now we need to create the implementation of the repository and test it. And here I've been thinking about the test a bit, and because that's a bit complicated. Well, it's a bit different. It's not complicated, but it's slightly different than what we used to do, what we are doing usually. So let me just do a quick reminder. You can skip if you are already familiar with it, but if I look at git log and I take the last commit that we just did here, I can do git cat file -p. That's going to show the content of the commit so that's the commit that is written in the object repository. I'm just going to try to find a blob here because we are not interested in commits, but more to blobs. So that's the tree, and I'm going to take a small one, for instance, the Scala FTM. Okay, so that's the file, the blob corresponding to the file Scala FTM.conf, FMT, sorry. Now we can, so this file is stored in the Git object repository, and we can find it. I can show you if I cut the file, so git /object/8c, and it's after it's d, right? Okay. So the first thing you can see here is that I guess for lookup purposes, there is the prefix here, the first two letters of the hash that are the directory where the file, which is form of the rest of the hash, is stored for the specific hash. So that's easier because you can just look up for 8c and then list all the elements of the directory instead of going through um, all the elements, all the hash possible that you would have in the folder. So that's helpful for lookup purposes. So that's the first thing that we need to test, if we're writing the hash in the right place. And the second thing that we need to test is the format, I think. So here you can see that it's unreadable. But actually, so I did a bit of research and I saw that it was using zlib. And zlib has an algorithm which is called deflate. And I think there is unflate as well too. So deflate is going to compress and unflate is going to decompress. I downloaded here a little program to show us what is actually the content of this file. So in the README, I added some more information about what we are talking about at the moment, what I'm explaining at the moment, and the library that I have is libflate and compress. So I should be able to find it. And instead of this, I'm gonna take d6 / no, it's 8cd. Okay. And interestingly, here you can see that this file contains a prefix, which is the type of element that we are storing, with the number of bytes. I think it's the number of bytes here that we are storing. And we need to be able to check that we are actually writing that correctly. If I open here the hash object use case, you can see that we already have the logic to have the blob plus the length. And okay, here there is the 0 bytes, but I don't know if there is going to be the 0 byte or not with in here. It's not written, at least it's not shown in the console, so we'll see with the test. So the first thing that we're going to try to do is try to write a test for that. So as I said earlier, the object repository implementation is going to be specific to one technology, which is in that case the file system. So it's going to be in the infrastructure. I created the file system repository here, and I am going to create Scala file, which is going to be object repository file system. Usually I like to put the name of the technology at the end. It's going to be an object. Okay, we already have the file system adapter here. And we're going to have a similar enough implementation. So it's going to be val live equals zlayer succeed of new object repository. Once the imports are done, we can just implement the save. So here we need to stop here and write a test for that. Yes, please, if you can import and spec. So we're going to create a suite of tests for So I'm using a new keyboard and I'm still trying to find my way around. So we're going to create a suite of tests for object repository file system should, and then we should have a test. No, test. And we said the first thing that we want to try to see is well, I'm wondering, maybe we can just have a single test for the month. It should save the blob at the right place, in the right format. Okay, so how do we test that? So I'm gonna start by creating a for here. We're gonna use the, we are gonna require the repository. Well, actually, what's the right way of doing that? We are specifying here, we are using, this is a test specific for the object file system repository. So I was about to write Zio service object repository, but here I think we can probably use explicitly the layer. Yeah, I'm not too sure exactly how we can do that, so I'm just going to actually specify the object repository file system here instead of the higher type repository file system. Let's see if, oh wow, it actually seems a bit better than before after the update. So repository file system, and what we're going to do is that we are going to call save, right? And I think what we are going to do, so this doesn't return anything. We're just going to use this file here. It's only because it's small, okay? So the chunk, no, it's the hash here. The hash is going to be this value here. And then we are going to have the byte, the stream bytes. So I'm going to take the content of the file. I'm going to take the content of the file, I think. File to save equals, and I'm going to create and I can just space. That's really important here not to go to the line, because you can see that there is no written line here, line written here. Okay, file to save, and actually what we want to save, and that's probably where there is a mistake in the other test actually, because in the other test we didn't put the blob. So let's finish this test and then we'll go fix the other test, this one, because we could see that it was actually prefixed by blob. Was it 41? 41, okay. So our save still takes a Z stream. So let's the stream from iterable, I suspect. Iterable. File to save. Gate bytes. TF8. So here, actually, this object repository file system is not a type, so I'm just going to put object repository. It's fine. Okay, so we are calling the save. So here we have a problem. We don't really want to pollute our Git object repository, the actual Git object repository that we have for this project for the test. So I'm wondering here if we should have some kind of, yeah, we're gonna write in targets. So what I'm thinking is that we can write in targets, create a new directory in targets to actually write the file. And to do that, we're going to do have to do something. Yeah, so what I'm suggesting is that we're gonna have to provide where we want to write, and because for the production we want to write inside of the Git repository object directory, and here we want to write in targets. So I'm trying to think what's the best solution here. I guess one solution would be to create a case class and say that would be the configuration for that. That would contain the information where we want to store our object repository, or we can just transform the live into a function and give the information as well. Yeah, I think that maybe transforming the live into a function might be easier than creating another layer that would depend. Yeah, I think it's the most simple solution that we have for the moment. So I'm gonna, is it root? Yeah, I'm gonna give root. Should we have? I wonder if we should use a file here instead of a string. I'm not too sure because the file might help to verify if the thing actually exists or not. Okay, let's put a string for the moment, and maybe we'll update that after. Okay, so I'm going to put parentheses here around that and provide the object repository file system dot live, and we're going to provide, so our target is in SRC, right? No, it's in actually target if I can write it correctly, git objects. Okay. Okay, so now we said that where we want to store our things. We want to verify, we want to read the file, and we expect the file to be stored so I'm actually going to extract that into a variable. It's going to be git objects repository location put. Okay. Yeah, I'm not too in love with using a string here, so maybe we'll try to improve that by using like a more specific types. But anyways, for the moment, let's so we're gonna try to read the file. Sorry. I'm gonna write that file, and we're gonna use that stream here. From file name, and this file name is gonna be the first git object repository root, right? And then we said that it should be stored in the directory for this specific hash is gonna be 8c, and the rest of the hash should be the file name. Okay, that's the file. What we can do now is actually go to the terminal. We are going to use the file that we have available here. And we are going to copy into the resources. And we are going to compare that this file is the same that the file that we are writing. So I'm going to copy that. Okay, we can't do that. In the SRC test resources. This is going to be I'm going to call that blob. File return file how can we call that? So this one is the file, would be the file that we want to compare to. So expected file written. Okay, and the expected file should be from file name, but this time it's gonna be not that, but it's gonna be src slash this file. If we look at this type here, so this is a Z stream of bytes. So we're gonna directly run collect here, because we are gonna have the same problem that we had before. We can't compare two files like that. And we're gonna say that expected file, oh no, file written equal to expected file. Now, one thing that I was thinking as well is that, so what if we run several times the test, should we clear this file? Well, I guess what's going to happen is that there's going to be, I'm thinking about some cache issue. I guess, like for instance, if we write the file once, we change the logic and doesn't write the file anymore, the test would still pass. So what we could do to avoid that is having like a kind of a random hash, even though it doesn't correspond to this specific thing that we're trying to save, but that would avoid the problem. I'm going to put that as a to-do because I'm not sure we have time to do that now. So two things as the to-do. Check. We need to check that the other test that we wrote is actually correct, because looking back, we see that there is this blob 41 here, and I am not sure that we're actually calling the repository with the right value. So check that hash object repository is calling no, sorry, check that hash object is calling the object repository the right value, and the right value means with the blob plus size prefix. That's one thing. And then refactor the object repository file system spec to a single hash Okay, so here I've added the two things to check. So check that the hash object use case is calling the object repository with the right value, with the blob plus the size prefix that we saw when we were actually unzipping the file here, blob 41. And refactor the object repository file system spec to generate a single hash to avoid cache issues. So that's the issue that I just mentioned. Okay, so let's see now if we can do anything with that. What's the, so there is a problem here with assert. Okay, it's not using the right assert. I'm gonna import everything from that. Should use the right assert. And now we can try to run the tests. An implementation is missing. Fair enough. That's what we are kind of expecting. So we done a bit of progress today. I'm going to stop the recording here now. We implemented this test here that hopefully is going to help us to check hopefully is going to help us to actually write the implementation that is missing here. We also made some progress with the test, the hash object use case, and the object repository mock to check that we are calling with the right values. And thinking back, there's potentially an issue here because when we unzipped the file here, we could see that there was a prefix here that we didn't put here. So if I remember correctly, so I suspect that this might be not quite correct. We need to check that in the next episode. That's it for this 8th episode of the Git series. Feel free to give me any feedback in the comments below or send me a message directly. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day. Bye bye.